You know that old promise, right? Work hard, stay loyal, and everything will work out. That's what your parents bought into. Millions of Americans did too. They got up every morning, made the same commute, sat at the same desk, worked for the same company, and poured everything they had into it. They genuinely believed loyalty meant something, that it would be returned. Then, in 2026, something quietly changed. There was no dramatic market crash, no breaking news banners or anchors shouting about an emergency. Just silence. And within that silence, more than 1.1 million middle-class jobs vanished. These were the kinds of jobs that paid the mortgage, put kids through college, and made retirement feel possible. Here's the part almost no one is saying out loud: this isn't a recession, it's a replacement. So what's really happening? Why does 2026 feel different from every other rough patch before it? And the question you're probably asking yourself right now: could your job be next? By the time we're done here, you'll start to notice a pattern. One that links every cut, every layoff, every carefully worded announcement about restructuring. And once that pattern clicks into place, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's start with the one that hits closest to home. Number 10. Walmart. When people start running out of money, Walmart isn't just another massive retailer. It's basically a financial thermometer for everyday Americans. When the economy is stable, shoppers still go there, maybe just cutting back a little. But when things turn ugly, those parking lots overflow, because let's be real, there aren't many cheaper options left. So when Walmart begins trimming jobs, that's not some routine corporate decision. That's a signal. It's them quietly acknowledging that something deeper is broken. In 2026 alone, they cut around 500 positions. Here's the part that should actually make you uneasy. These weren't cashiers or short-term seasonal workers. Walmart went after logistics staff, supply chain planners, and the behind-the-scenes professionals, the invisible backbone earning between $70,000 and $100,000 a year, who keep the entire operation moving. Why would a company like that do something like this? Just look at your grocery bill. 3 years ago, a basic cart might have cost you about $90. Today, eggs, chicken, milk, and a few canned items can easily hit $120. Food prices have climbed somewhere between 15 and 22%. And unless your paycheck jumped the same amount, which I'm guessing it didn't, that gap has to come from somewhere. People still need to eat, obviously. But they're changing how they shop. Fewer items in the cart, cheaper brands, fewer trips to the store. That means Walmart is selling less, and products are moving more slowly through their system. Warehouses that used to be packed are now sitting with unused space. And that's when the cold, uncomfortable question shows up. How many workers do we actually need now? Turns out, the machines already have an answer. AI handles inventory management. Automated scanners track everything in real time. Robots work through the night. They don't get sick, don't take breaks, and never ask for raises. On a spreadsheet, they look flawless. So when Walmart makes cuts like this, they're really admitting something unsettling. American shoppers are tapped out. Even the entire sell cheap to everyone model is starting to crack. And here's where it gets even darker. If Walmart, selling food, toilet paper, and basic survival essentials, is pulling back, what do you think happens to companies trying to sell luxury tech, ambitious future projects, or non-essential upgrades? Number 9. Microsoft. When the people who helped build the company start getting replaced, that's when things feel different. Microsoft used to be the safe bet. Cutting-edge work, long careers, building the future, and yet in 2026, they cut roughly 6,000 jobs. Here's the part that doesn't immediately make sense. Microsoft isn't struggling. They're swimming in cash, pulling in tens of billions of dollars every year. So why make cuts now? Because the very AI they created is starting to take over the work. We're talking about software engineers, cloud architects, cybersecurity specialists, people earning anywhere from $120,000 to $200,000 a year. These are the professionals who built Windows, Office, and Azure, the ones keeping critical systems running for millions of companies across the globe. Microsoft has poured tens of billions of dollars into AI development. Training a single advanced model can cost anywhere from $50 to $100 million. Their data centers consume as much electricity as small cities. At some point, something had to give, and they decided it would be people. Their internal AI systems can now write documentation, test software, hunt for bugs, and even manage operations. Tasks that once required entire teams of highly skilled workers can now be handled automatically. The AI doesn't get tired. It doesn't take vacations. It never asks for raises, promotions, or stock options. And here's the part that really stings. No one is angry at you. No one is blaming you. The system just doesn't need you anymore. What hurts isn't only the job loss. It's the realization that you've been reduced to a line in a spreadsheet, a cost per hour equation. 20 years of experience doesn't make the algorithm run even a second faster. And this isn't Microsoft being unusual or reckless. This is the same pattern showing up everywhere you look. Number 8. Amazon. Amazon didn't just change shopping, it reshaped how we live. 2-day shipping on almost anything became normal, and we all got comfortable with instant gratification. But now, they're experimenting with something very different, figuring out just how few humans they actually need to keep the machine running. Publicly, Amazon announced 14,000 job cuts. Quietly, people inside the company say the real number is much closer to 30,000. And these aren't warehouse pickers or hourly staff. These are technical employees, cloud engineers, advertising specialists, AI developers, people earning between $120,000 and $200,000 a year. So why would Amazon do this? Because they've poured more than $50 billion into AI, cloud infrastructure, and automation. A single modern warehouse can cost anywhere from $300 to $500 million to build, but once it's up and running, it operates nonstop. 24 hours a day. No injuries, no breaks, no complaints about pay. The robots aren't just replacing one worker at a time. They're wiping out entire shifts, entire departments, whole job categories that used to require hundreds of people. And you're probably doing what most people are doing right now, spending less, cutting back, filling online carts, and then closing the app without checking out. Here's the unsettling part. Amazon isn't making these moves because they're desperate or failing. They're running an experiment, a model where human workers are optional. And if that model works for them, it won't stop at Amazon. It'll show up wherever you work next. This ties directly into something much bigger unfolding across nearly every industry at the same time. Number 7. Salesforce. This is what happens when family only lasts as long as the money does. Salesforce always claimed they were different. They leaned hard into the idea of ohana, the Hawaiian word for family. A workplace built on warmth, belonging, and people genuinely looking out for one another. And for a long time, it wasn't just corporate talk. People joined Salesforce because of that culture, not only for the paycheck, but because it felt like a place where they actually mattered. Then, almost overnight, 4,000 jobs were gone. The announcement was clean and quiet. No drama, no long explanations. Just cuts across customer service, sales operations, cloud consulting, and technical teams. These were remote workers, high performers with spotless records, people earning between $90,000 and $180,000 a year. So what happened to the whole family-first promise? AI-powered CRM systems happened. Tools that can now write emails, interact with customers, forecast sales, and analyze buyer behavior. Work that once required full teams of support staff and sales ops professionals can now be handled automatically. And the savings are massive, roughly $300 million every single year. At the same time, Salesforce's core customers, small and mid-sized businesses, started pulling back. As interest rates climbed and budgets tightened, paying $50 to $100 per employee each month for software suddenly became an easy expense to cut. Revenue slowed. Margins shrank. And just like that, the family got smaller. The reality hits hard. Ohana means family right up until a spreadsheet says otherwise. Corporate culture, it turns out, is mostly branding. When money gets tight, those beautifully written mission statements are the first things to disappear. Number 6. UPS. This is what it looks like when the trucks keep rolling, but the people don't. UPS used to stand for something solid: union protection, reliable health insurance, and a real retirement at the end of the road. You had predictable schedules, a job you could build a life around, and genuine middle-class stability. It wasn't glamorous, and it didn't make you rich, but it was dependable and fair. Then 48,000 jobs disappeared. That's not just a large number, that's a seismic shift. This isn't a trendy tech company quietly adjusting headcount. This is the literal circulatory system of American commerce. Drivers, warehouse workers, dispatchers, supervisors, people earning anywhere from $45,000 to nearly $100,000 a year. Long-tenured employees who spent decades building careers they thought were secure. The official explanation? Restructuring and automation. UPS has invested billions in sorting robots, intelligent warehouse systems, and automated scanning. Each distribution center costs hundreds of millions of dollars to build, but the payoff is huge, roughly $3 billion in savings every single year. Robots don't strike, they don't take vacations, they don't negotiate contracts. At the same time, online shopping is cooling off. Families are tightening their budgets. Fewer purchases mean fewer packages. And when things start moving more slowly, that familiar, uncomfortable question resurfaces. How many workers do we really need anymore? The trucks are still on the road. There are just far fewer people inside them now. Even these once rock-solid middle-class jobs, protected by unions and decades of history, aren't safe anymore. And if the middle class itself is being fed into the automation machine, who's left to stop society from splitting cleanly in two? Number 5. Boeing. This is what it looks like when safety starts getting labeled as too expensive. For generations, Boeing represented American excellence. We built the biggest aircraft, flew higher than anyone else, and prided ourselves on doing it safely. That reputation used to mean something. Then Boeing eliminated 2,500 jobs. These weren't interns or administrative roles. These were engineers, quality control experts, and flight safety specialists, people earning between $85,000 and $140,000 a year, whose entire responsibility was making sure airplanes don't fall out of the sky. Let that sink in for a moment. Boeing is currently sitting on more than $31 billion in losses. New orders are slowing, regulators are watching closely, and after years of very public safety failures, the company is still trying to clean up old issues while new ones keep emerging. And instead of fixing the problems faster, they chose to cut staff faster. Think of it this way. Imagine taking your car to a mechanic and learning they're saving money by firing everyone who checks the brakes. Would you feel comfortable driving that car afterward? Would you trust that shop at all? When an aircraft manufacturer lays off the people responsible for safety, you don't need turbulence to feel uneasy. The anxiety shows up immediately. But Boeing isn't really the core issue here. What matters is what this signals. When an American icon, once a symbol of our best manufacturing, starts treating seasoned engineers as line items to eliminate instead of the people protecting passengers' lives, it tells you something fundamental has changed. So ask yourself, is this a temporary downturn or proof that safety, quality, and doing things right now matter less than hitting quarterly targets? And if this kind of decision-making can happen in aviation, where mistakes cost lives instantly, what happens in industries where the damage is slower, quieter, and easier to ignore? Number 4. General Motors. Electric vehicles were supposed to be the way forward. A clean break from oil, less pollution, and a push to drag the American auto industry into the modern age. GM went all in on that vision, investing more than $35 billion in electric cars over just a few years. New factories, advanced batteries, custom software, slide decks packed with bold promises about the future. Then, by 2026, GM announced 3,400 layoffs. And here's the twist. These weren't legacy factory jobs being cut. They were the future-facing roles. Battery engineers, software developers, drivetrain specialists, the exact positions everyone assumed would be safe in this new economy. So what actually went wrong? Walk through a GM dealership and the answer is right there. Rows of electric vehicles that look sleek, modern, and impressive, and completely untouched. Most EVs are priced between $50,000 and $60,000. At the same time, car loan interest rates are squeezing households, and more than 7% of Americans are already behind on their auto payments. The harsh truth is this. People don't hate electric cars. They simply can't afford them. You can't sell someone a cleaner tomorrow when they're barely managing today's rent. You can't ask families to invest in saving the planet when they're focused on keeping their own finances from collapsing. Every unsold car sitting on that lot isn't just inventory, it's frozen cash, storage costs, and extra weight on the balance sheet. And when that pressure builds, companies start walking back the promises they once made so confidently. There's a saying that sounds almost funny until you think about it. You can't save the planet with cars nobody can buy. The EV dream didn't exactly disappear. It slammed headfirst into stagnant wages, overwhelming debt, and interest rates that just keep climbing. For thousands of GM employees, the shock isn't only about losing a job. It's realizing they believed they were building the future, only to find out the future was the first thing cut when money got tight. And that reveals something critical about how the system really works now. It also leads straight into the next barrier people assumed would protect them, starting to break down. Number 3. IBM. This is the moment office workers discover what factory workers learned a long time ago. For years, Americans believed there was an invisible dividing line. Factory jobs were exposed to automation, sure, but white-collar work? Engineers, analysts, tech professionals in button-down shirts staring at computer screens? Those jobs were supposed to be safe. IBM was the symbol of that belief. A century-old company. Stable culture, clear career paths. People joined IBM fully expecting to spend decades there and eventually retire with a gold watch and a handshake. Then 2026 arrived, and IBM announced roughly 2,700 layoffs. These weren't assistants or back-office roles. These were cloud experts, data analysts, cybersecurity professionals, and business consultants, the so-called brains of the operation. The explanation was brief and blunt. Automation. IBM has invested aggressively in its own internal AI systems, enough to replace an estimated 30% of the work being done by humans. This single round of cuts alone saves the company about $250 million every year. On paper, the math looks fantastic. But people aren't line items. Picture this. You're 52 years old. You spent 2 decades mastering IBM's legacy systems, following every rule, hitting every benchmark, doing exactly what the company asked. Then one random Tuesday morning, you're told your role has been optimized. Not because you failed, not because you weren't good at your job, but because a machine can do it faster, cheaper, and without stopping for lunch. Office workers are now learning the same lesson factory workers learned generations ago. What makes it sting even more is the class divide underneath it all. Many believed that a college degree, years of professional experience, and loyalty to one company would protect them when things got tough. But when AI advances faster than people can retrain, age suddenly flips from being an asset to being a liability. So here's the real question. If even these knowledge-based jobs, the last supposed refuge of the middle class, aren't safe anymore, who actually is? And this realization connects directly to something even more unsettling. Our core infrastructure starting to fracture under the very same pressure. Number 2, Verizon. This is what it looks like when the people who keep us connected start getting cut. There are entire industries you barely notice until the moment they fail. Phone and internet service is one of them. You don't think about Verizon when you're FaceTiming your kids, streaming a show without buffering, or relying on GPS to get through a storm. When everything works smoothly, it feels automatic. But it isn't magic. Behind every call, every signal, every connection, there are real people making it happen. Then 2026 arrived. Verizon announced roughly 15,000 job cuts. And this wasn't limited to desk jobs. Network technicians, customer service agents, maintenance crews, supervisors, the people who keep things running when the power goes out, when snow shuts down roads, when emergencies hit. The invisible workforce that keeps the country online. So why would a company providing such a critical service make cuts like this? Because they're being squeezed from both sides. Verizon pours $8 to $10 billion every year into 5G infrastructure and network upgrades. That spending isn't optional. It's the price of staying competitive in a brutal tech arms race. At the same time, consumers are doing what they have to do. They're downgrading their plans, moving from $80 a month packages to cheaper options with slower speeds and less data. Not because staying connected matters less, but because household bills keep stacking up. Competition is tightening too. Low-cost carriers are pulling customers away with cheaper deals, while debt payments and massive infrastructure costs crush profit margins from every angle. And when that financial pressure reaches a breaking point, companies fall back on the same solution every time: cut jobs. In Verizon's case, those cuts save an estimated $1.2 billion a year. Here's a statement that sounds brutal, but reflects reality. Even essential services aren't considered essential when it comes to keeping people on payroll. What really unsettles people isn't just the layoffs. It's the deeper question underneath. If the workers who literally keep America connected are treated as disposable costs, then where exactly is the line between essential and expendable now? This brings us to the final piece of the pattern, where what the country depends on collides head-on with what companies say they can afford. Number 1. Intel. This is where national security collides headfirst with financial reality. For decades, Intel wasn't just another tech company. It stood as a symbol of American industrial strength. That familiar Intel Inside sticker carried a promise. The US didn't just design advanced technology, we built it here at home. So when Intel announced roughly 20,000 job cuts, the reaction wasn't just concern, it was confusion. Especially because this is happening while Washington keeps talking nonstop about supply chain security, domestic chip production, and winning the global semiconductor race. But chip manufacturing isn't like software development. You can't spin it up overnight. It demands staggering amounts of capital, years of planning, and near-perfect precision. A single modern semiconductor factory, called a fab, costs between $15 and $20 billion just to build. That doesn't even include the enormous cost of operating it. It's basically like constructing a small city whose only job is to make silicon thinner than a human hair. Intel placed massive bets, new fabs, expanded facilities, bigger ambitions. But while they were building, the rules of the game changed. The AI boom exploded, and demand shifted away from CPUs, Intel's specialty, toward GPUs. That's where NVIDIA and overseas competitors surged ahead. TSMC now produces chips faster, cheaper, and more reliably. Intel found itself squeezed from both sides. On one side, political pressure to keep manufacturing in the US. On the other, the brutal math of shrinking profits. And when those forces collide, it's usually workers who absorb the impact. National security sounds inspiring, until it's time to fund payroll. 20,000 job cuts isn't an abstract figure. It's tens of thousands of six-figure salaries disappearing from communities that were built around Intel, from Arizona to Oregon to Ohio. Entire cities that grew up around chip plants are now asking a terrifying question. What happens when the factory shrinks? And there's an even quieter question no one wants to say out loud. What happens when a national security strategy doesn't generate enough profit quickly enough? That completes the pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. What you just heard wasn't a list of 10 unrelated companies making random decisions. It was 10 pieces of the same puzzle. An economy where loyalty no longer protects you, where experience doesn't shield you, where human labor is constantly compared to how cheaply and efficiently a machine can do the same work. None of these companies are cartoon villains. They're not evil masterminds. They're responding exactly the way the system rewards them for responding. The real question isn't who's right or wrong anymore. It's where this road actually leads. Look at the pattern closely. Walmart cuts logistics roles because customers can't afford to buy enough. Boeing cuts safety engineers because fixing problems costs more than cutting staff. GM cuts battery engineers because people can't afford the future being built. IBM cuts cloud experts because AI does it cheaper. Microsoft cuts the people who built the systems because the systems now build themselves. Salesforce cuts family when margins shrink. Verizon cuts the workers keeping the country connected. Intel cuts manufacturing jobs despite being labeled a national priority. UPS cuts drivers even though packages still need to move. Amazon cuts jobs simply because it can. Every story follows the same script. Technology advances. Costs rise. People struggle. Companies optimize. Jobs vanish. This isn't a temporary phase that magically fixes itself. It's a deep restructuring of how the economy values human contribution. The middle class was built on a simple deal: work hard, stay loyal, and you'll have stability. That deal is unraveling in real time. Here's the part that keeps me awake at night. Those 1.1 million jobs didn't move somewhere else. They weren't outsourced overseas. They weren't shifted to another region. They simply disappeared, replaced by code, algorithms, and machines that never sleep. And this is the truly frightening part. This is just the opening chapter. The companies cutting jobs right now are the successful ones. They're profitable. They're growing. They're making billions. Now imagine what happens when companies that are actually struggling start running the same calculations. Some people will say this is just creative destruction, that the economy always adapts. New jobs will replace old ones, just like during the Industrial Revolution or the rise of computers. But there's a critical difference this time. Those transitions unfolded over generations. People had time. Kids grew up learning new skills. Entire communities slowly shifted. This change is happening in years, not decades. A 50-year-old logistics coordinator can't become an AI engineer overnight. A 45-year-old software developer can't compete with algorithms that run non-stop and never burn out. Others will argue we need stronger safety nets, universal basic income, retraining programs, stronger unions. Maybe they're right. But all of that requires political will. And right now, the political system looks just as fragile as the economic one. The uncomfortable truth is this. We're watching something unprecedented. An economy that keeps getting more productive while needing fewer and fewer people to operate it. And no one truly knows how this ends. What happens to a society where work, the thing that gave people purpose, identity, and survival, becomes optional for the system but mandatory for individuals? What happens when effort and reward are no longer connected? When being great at your job isn't enough because a machine can do it cheaper? These aren't abstract ideas. They're being answered right now through layoff emails, severance packages, and carefully worded LinkedIn posts about new opportunities. The American promise used to be simple. If you work hard, you'll be okay. For millions of people, that promise is being quietly deleted. So here's what actually matters. Are you starting to see these warning signs where you work? Has your company begun talking obsessively about efficiency, optimization, or digital transformation? Those are often just polite ways of describing what's coming. Do you think this is temporary restructuring or the new normal? And most importantly, what do we do about it? Complaining won't stop it. Ignoring it definitely won't. The only real path forward is understanding what's happening and preparing for a future that looks nothing like the past. This isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. The economy is changing faster than most people realize, and the workers who survive this shift won't be the ones who work the hardest or stay the most loyal. They'll be the ones who recognize the pattern early and adapt before it's too late.